What is up, everybody? Hopefully you can see us right now. I saw some thumbs down and I saw some questions. Hopefully that means the upper left guy goes away. I wonder if that's me. But hopefully you guys can be seeing us. We're broadcasting now real quick. If you can see me and you can see Kate and the broadcast has started, I see thumbs up. So that's got to be a good sign. Shoot, really quickly, shoot us a question using the control panel. I'm going to walk you through how to do all this, but if you can hear me, you can see me. The text seems to be working now. Shoot me a question. Let me know that you can hear and see us, and then we will get started. I believe that we're seeing loves. We're seeing thumbs up. All right, guys, I'm going to take that as a positive. And Kate, right up the bat, I'm going to apologize to you. I'm going to apologize to everybody on here for our little tech issues. Kirsten already knows my favorite color. Appreciate y'all with the responses. Thank you so much. Thank y'all for taking the time to come to this webinar today to sit in with me and Kate. For those who don't know me, my name is Rick Williamson. Everybody knows me as Ricky Redtail, and I'm the senior lead of product marketing and content now with a brand new title here with Redtail. And I'm very excited to talk with Kate today. But before we get into it, I want to see, this is how I know my people are in the chat, is because I'm getting some random questions. I don't know Swallow's answer, unfortunately. But before we get going, I want to introduce, I already did myself, and Kate Guillen, the founder, the boss, the head honcho over at Simplicity Ops. Kate and I have been working together for years. She's one of my favorite people in the industry to talk about this kind of stuff, whether it be, the way your office runs, whether it be client experience and the way that we work with our people and we share our love and we share, this goal, this dream of helping people out. Kate, I'm really, really excited to talk with you today. And the last thing that I am going to say before we get started is, on the Un24 panel, you can move this around however you want. If you want the slides to be the biggest thing that you're looking at, you can drag around, you can resize. I'm legally blind, so I like my pictures as big as possible. This is also where you can submit your questions. Some of you have already done that, and so you guys know how to use that. We have a boatload of resources on your page, so please click around. You can't break anything. And then when this is over, this is going to be recorded. It is going to be available on demand. The same link that you used to get here, you can share it with other people if you find this helpful. You can come back and visit it later on. Please take advantage of all of the resources on your page. But with all of that table setting done, Kate, we're here to talk about client experience, operational excellence, and technology and wealth management. Those is kind of the stuff that I just listed off that we're really, really into, right? And so I kind of want to just give you the ball and run with it. I got some questions. I got some stuff I'm going to, interrupt you on and whatnot. But why are you here? What are we talking today? Give us the skinny.
Awesome. Yeah, you bet. And I very much want this to be a conversation. So I'm going to run through some of these slides, but let's please, interject when you've got questions. But thank you for having me today, first and foremost, and for everybody joining us. My name is Kate Guillen, and I am the founder of Simplicity Ops. And here at Simplicity Ops, we believe that a financial advisor's #1 responsibility is the client experience. Because if you can't attract clients and you can't retain clients, well, then you got no business. And after having worked in this industry now for the last 13 years, I learned pretty quickly that the best tool in your tech stack to use to deliver an amazing client service experience is your CRM. And so what we're going to talk today about is the importance of the client experience, and I'm going to show you how to leverage your CRM and a couple of other cool pieces of technology to deliver an exceptional client service experience at scale. Okay? And so I think what I want to start by saying is the why behind this conversation. And I feel like client expectations have changed. In today's environment, clients want fast, proactive, and a personalized service. And in this kind of crowded advisory space, I find that the financial advisor's experience is what is the differentiator. And so the best customer service experience to me is one that's built on trust. And that trust isn't built in a single interaction. It's built through consistent, thoughtful interactions, and that's what keeps clients loyal, and that's what fuels referrals. And so what I want to talk about today is how we can leverage technology to be able to do that very easily and very consistently. Okay. And so, defining first what operational excellence means. And Rick, you and I have had a lot of conversation about this, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. But in my opinion, it's a firm that is running with clarity, with consistency, and with intention. And from my background being in the ops space, that's having really clear processes, very aligned systems, and a team that executes things confidently.
Absolutely.
Here's your thoughts on that. Yeah.
I mean, I literally just wrote a blog post that is scheduled to go, or sort of email. I lose track of all the content I'm putting out now, but I just wrote one about the value of a style guide and how a style guide is essentially, if we have any sports fans, on the call, like that's a playbook, and every good team, because that's ultimately what we all are, is we're all teammates, we're all team members trying to achieve the same goal. Like, you need a playbook. You need, all of the little details about who is running what role, whose responsibility it is to get that guy when he's on offense or whatever. And it's fascinating. And maybe it's, maybe it's not that fascinating, or maybe it's not that rare, but I'm always fascinated by the people who get into any type of business. And they don't have like a client experience type playbook, because like I wanted to ask you, client experience matters now more than ever, but like why is that? Like, obviously we want to talk about a competitive advantage here.
Right.
And so like, I'm just really curious as to how that has become not only a competitive edge, but I have a question for you going back, which is like, when you're talking to somebody, or when you're talking to a group and they say, client experience hasn't been at the top of our priority list, or maybe our client experience needs work, what's the first thing that pops into your head when you hear somebody say that?
Well, they've just gotten to a place where, like, the reactive, or what they originally built the business on has worked up into a point, but now they worry about balls being dropped, or balls are being dropped, or they've received a client that like beat them to the punch on some sort of servicing request, and it makes you look bad, it makes you feel bad, it makes you worry. And when you lead your relationships from a place of worry, it doesn't feel good. And people want to feel good. They want to have trust and certainty, especially in the person managing their money. And so having these systems that I'm going to show you how to build in place to be proactive and be intentional and be very personalized and meaningful in your communication is what people want. And that's the differentiator.
Exactly. I've been telling people this, and it's a bit of, and I don't mean it to be aggressive, but sometimes it comes off that way. This industry is no longer the gatekeepers of wealth. Like it used to be. It used to be you had to work with a financial advisor or a broker or whatever in order to actually build your wealth. But like, those blockers are gone. Anybody can go into a direct service app now and, plan their system out. They can build their budgets. They can make direct investments. I can start a Roth IRA without ever talking to another human being ever. And there's a level of automation there that is obviously very valuable, but the experience is what brings people back. It's beyond the transaction. If the transaction that you're providing as a service is now easily, replicable across different platforms, what's the extra juice, right? What are we giving? What are we providing? And I find that fascinating.
And so then the question is like, okay, all of that sounds really good, and I agree with you, but like, how?
Right.
And that's what I want to share today, because I feel like a lot of people still don't understand the value and how robust your CRM can be. And I'm going to get into some other tools, because at the end of the day, your CRM is a database, and there's some other tools that we need to incorporate. But I want everybody to be very clear that anything else that I'm going to share as part of this conversation today is less effective if you're not optimizing this tool to be the hub of your business. Okay. Right. And so this this image kind of brings this idea of the operational hub to life. But what I mean is like Redtail needs to be your contact management system, a task management system, your sales pipeline, note-taking, calendaring, account feed. It needs to be where your proactive client service experience lives. You should be leveraging that tool as the vehicle for delivering on this dream experience, and then using tools like, you know, workflows and automations to be able to deliver those services at scale. And so, you know, when all of this is used effectively, your CRM really does power the entire, you know, client journey behind the scenes. And so I want to kind of start to think about like a roadmap and how to go about accomplishing what Rick and I are talking about, because we need to first think through, like, what do we want this experience to feel like? Get really clear on who are the people that you serve, the services you provide, and what does this feel like from the client's perspective, okay? And so the unfortunate part of this process is we got to qualify our people, okay? And generally it looks something like this. You have about 4 tiers, and it's structured by 3 A's. I took this from Michael Kitces. The 3 A's are AUM, advocacy, and attitude. It's a dollar amount, okay? Whether, you know, it's a revenue number, however you want to quantify that, it's a dollar amount, AUM. Advocacy, are they an advocate for your business? They might only have 100 grand to their name, but they're a killer referral source. So we want to give them the tier 1 Ritz-Carlton white glove client service experience to continue nurturing that relationship. And then the 3rd A is attitude. Do you like working with these people? Okay, that's going to dictate how many times a year we want to meet with them, right? But by segmenting them into these 4 buckets, now we can create a scalable service experience based on their segment within our book of business, and design how many times a year are we meeting with them? You know, are we having conversations in between those meetings? How are we celebrating them? What kind of meetings are we having? You know, getting in front of the next generation proactively and nurturing these folks. They're going to inherit this money down the road. We need to be having family meetings with our tier 1 clients, right? We need to start getting in front of these folks before, you know, we start nearing the end of life or what have you. But like really getting clear on how does it feel to be one of our clients? And I see a lot of advisors, they either like just have it up here, okay, it's never been documented, or they've documented it in something like this, but it's just a pipe dream until we actually put it into action, okay? And what I mean by putting it into action is leveraging tools like Redtail to build out, you know, keywords for the months of the year that we're meeting with clients, and assign clients to specific keywords, creating email templates for the way we reach out to schedule these meetings, leveraging tools like G-Reminders or Calendly to schedule meetings in bulk, having workflows to structure the way we prepare for meetings. You guys get what I'm getting at here. I don't think people understand how robust Redtail can be if we do some of this kind of preliminary work first, taking that then to the CRM to use that as the vehicle for making all of this stuff happen.
You said a phrase that is very important to me, which is like, what do your clients feel when they're working with you? Exactly. Emotion is a powerful thing. It's one of your most powerful assets in really hammering home what you're trying to do. You know, many of the tools that are at your disposal in fintech are now shifting, right? We're seeing not only the trade stuff become faster, portfolio rebalancing, all the actual tools to work with the accounts are becoming faster. They're becoming almost automatic in some cases. Orion has an incredible tool to help portfolio rebalancing and things like that. And I'm starting to see there are more tools coming out that really help advisors be that translator, the translator to all of this stuff that you're dealing with. And I use a little bit of a different phrase when it comes to emotion. And I stole it from Brene Brown. If anybody knows Brene Brown, she's one of my favorite people to talk about emotion and perspective and vulnerability. But she uses this amazing term, the story I'm telling myself is, right? Because human beings are storytellers. It's just how our brains work. Since the beginning of time, we've been doing cave paintings just to tell stories and things like that. And so when you're in a service position, when you're in an advising position, you are kind of regulating yourself to be the secondary character in your client's story, right? Like, that's the nature of a service business. That's the nature of being an advisor is, yes, you are your own main character, of course. But when you are working with a client, you are helping guide them through their story. And so do you want to be Yoda, or do you want to be like Ben Stein from Ferris Bueller? What type of secondary character do you want to be in your clients' lives, and how can you do that? What story are they telling themselves when they walk into your office? And these types of things, these types of details can help build that connection, not just because they're really good organizational tactics, but they're also really good short form tactics.
For sure.
And this is actually a really good question that popped up here, and I should have mentioned this at the very beginning, so I apologize. These, Stat for Success webinars, they are not always deep involved tech training. This one in particular is more strategic training. One of the things I love about working with Kate is that, like, it doesn't matter if you're using Redtail or not. Obviously, they pay me the big bucks to say you should be using Redtail, and I truly do. I think you're going to be getting an amazing experience out of using Redtail, but these strategies are something that you should be taking back and implementing regardless of what tools that you're entering in.
Right.
And the last thing that I'll mention is my favorite part about these service models and deliveries is that you can get creative with them. You can build an office shorthand. Another office, this is an example I use all the time, literally, but they had, instead of tiers, they had mountain ranges, right? They had Everest clients and K2 clients and Denali clients. And the short form of that tells them everything that's in those columns. It tells them, okay, Everest, I know exactly what this person is supposed to get just by seeing Everest, just by seeing tier 1. That's one of my favorite parts about this.
And so, piggybacking on what you're going to say here, for people that had this question, we are going to give everybody a copy of this slide deck, and I've also included some resources at the end here, including a style guide sample, so that you guys can take this information, take it back to your business, and adapt what you've learned here, and really tailor it to the uniqueness of your firm. But I challenge everybody, like Rick is saying, to think through, what this looks like and how this feels, because ultimately this is going to dictate, what are your templates? What emails templates do you need? What note templates do you need? Task templates? What workflow templates? And that's what I want to talk about next. Like, once we get clear on who we serve and the services we provide, we need to start documenting our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, all of the repetitive things that you do to standardize and create a consistent customer service experience. Couple of reasons before I jump to the next slide and talk about workflows. One, by having those SOPs documented, it gives, it sets expectations for how our firm operates, how our firm handles opening new accounts, moving money, changing an address, someone passes away, okay? The result of that is it gives the team the confidence to know exactly how to execute in their role. And the ripple down effect of that is it gives the clients the confidence to know that no matter who they talk to on your team, they are going to get a consistent experience. They're going to get consistent communication because we have email templates documented. They're going to get a consistent, service around moving money or depositing checks, no matter who they work with on your team, okay? And so I want everybody to think for a second about all the things that you're doing more than 3 times that has more than 3 steps. It's going to look something like this, depending on the kind of business you run. It's going to expand and contract depending on the different services that you offer. But like opening new account, moving money, changing an address, the things I just talked about, okay, are all things you do more than 3 times that have more than 3 steps. And you might be rolling your eyes at me right now like, holy smokes, who in the world has time to document all of this stuff? But I promise you, short-term pain for long-term gain. In an effort to not reinvent the wheel every single time we need to change a penny, we need to document that process. What do we do internally? What do we, what does Schwab require of us? And like, what do we want it to feel like from the client's perspective? Well, we got to put together paperwork. We got to send it back. We need to make sure we get it back. We need to process it. We need to make sure there's no NIGOs. We need to double check Schwab's work and make sure they didn't fat finger the address before the client gets to confirm. And then we need to email the client to let them know that we have done what we said we were going to do, and proactively communicate and close the loop, especially when there's money in motion, that things are getting done, to give them the confidence that they know that we are doing what we said we were going to do. Sounds like a really silly thing, but I promise you that proactive communication goes a very long way. Another very repeatable process. Someone calls in and says, hey, Ricky, heard great things about you. Would love to get some time on your calendar. We have some sort of qualifying phone call. Then we have some sort of discovery meeting. Then we put together, a financial plan, and then they're like, great, Rick, love you. Let's move forward. We're ready to sign on. Okay, we need to put together some paperwork. What happens after paperwork gets put together and signed? Well, there's a whole slew of onboarding things behind the scenes that need to happen, which we need to keep the client, up to speed on what we're doing. The transfer's held up because of whatever. They need an additional statement, whatever. Let's be proactive in that communication so people aren't left wondering, like, where in the world are we on this? Like, we want to nurture that process to give them the confidence that we, can fulfill on what we sold them during this process. And then I like to do a client welcome meeting. Rick, I've signed on with you. Now is your opportunity to say, hey, Kate, here's how often you're going to hear from me, going back to our service model. Here's how often we're going to be meeting together. You can you can expect to hear from me X amount of times a year. Here's what your statement looks like. Here's how to access, your information online. Here's an introduction to your portal where you can share documents. Give these people a warm welcome hug and embrace them and explain how they can be a good client and how you are going to serve them.
Absolutely.
And go ahead. I'm sure you have thoughts on that.
I mean, when don't I have thoughts? I have too many thoughts. That's why I go to therapy. But I'm fascinated by this because you're absolutely right. There is an immense amount of work that needs to be done behind the scenes in order to make sure that you are able to truly serve this client and give them your best at any given point. But the real trick to experience is massaging that. It's making all of that extra busy work, which is important and needed, right? I don't say busy work is a frivolous, rejecting type of phrase. It's just not very fun. And there are ways within the process that you can warm up to somebody, that you can build this system in a way that is, as you said, nurturing, welcoming, building in trust, encouraging relaxation. Daniel Crosby over here, Dr. Crosby, he has amazing stats on B5, but one of the most important ones to me is that people get the same level of emotional intensity when they're talking about money as they are when they're talking about politics, religion, the bedroom. It's the same type of emotions. And a huge part of our responsibility in this industry is to be able to meet those emotions where they're at and alleviate them and help them out whilst also dealing with all this process. I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to jump ahead of you, but we're looking at all of these potential workflows. What's one workflow that everybody should have, but is maybe the most overlooked?
Yeah,
if I could throw one at you.
I love this question. I think everybody understands, the value of leveraging workflows for client servicing, prospecting stuff. But, I'm not joking when I say anything that's done more than 3 times, it has more than 3 steps. That includes all of your operational things: hiring, firing, billing, trading, reporting, compliance. Your CRM maintenance is the most overlooked workflow in the entire bunch. And the reason I bring this up, and we're going to be rolling this out, Rick, in a couple of weeks, is the Redtail Workflow Library. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we've contributed a couple of workflows to the Redtail Workflow Library, one of which is the CRM maintenance workflow. Because what people don't remember is that this is a living, breathing component of your business, and things change. Your tools change, your people change, your custodial requirements change. We've got a lot, especially if you're operating as a team, we've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen. People are adding contacts. We need to audit our systems, processes, workflows, and contacts ongoingly to ensure consistency. I believe that Redtail should be the source of truth for managing these relationships. But if people are mislabeled, things are outdated, people really, if the data is not trustworthy, ain't nobody buying into the rest of this stuff. So we need to have an ongoing audit to ensure these systems, especially the contacts, stay well organized. And I'm going to give you a style guide at the end of this conversation to help get you thinking about how to structure contacts. And then we're also going to give you the workflow template so that you can incorporate that into your business so that you now have an auditing process for that.
I love it. I love it. And you're right.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're right. There is a lot of maintenance that is, it's not the funnest part of the job. You know, unless you're a
Very
crazy person
necessary.
like me. Sometimes when I get locked in, I just love data management sometimes, but I might be showing on myself a little bit here, but it's incredibly important. The second somebody walks in, having their updated data in there so that I know immediately who this person is. I know what their values are. I know the things. One of my favorite things is the things they choose to waste their time on, right? The things they choose to spend those precious few minutes of free time when they don't have to work or they don't have to worry about responsibilities. Like, those are the ways you hit people on top of process. And I agree.
And so kind of piggybacking on all of this, I had said at the beginning of this conversation that nothing else that I'm going to explain the second half of this webinar is as effective if these systems aren't in place. And I mean that. You know, at the end of the day, Redtail is a database. It is just a CRM. It cannot be all the things. Yes, it should be the hub for managing your client relationships, but there are some very necessary spokes that come off of that hub, okay? It's not your portfolio management tool. It's not your financial planning tool. It's not your document storage tool. Well, I guess you could argue imaging, but I've got other thoughts about that. It's not your custodial platform, okay? Like, there are some very necessary spokes that come off of this hub. And me coming from an operations and client servicing background, there's some really cool tools that I want to talk about that help, you know, elevate your client service experience and really empower those of you on the front lines meeting with the clients to, you know, ultimately free up more time so that you can pour more deeply into your client relationships. And a couple of tools that I want to talk about here that I really like are, you know, AI note takers, all the buzz, right? But the value of removing an associate advisor or, you know, an assistant, whoever is joining you in your meetings, and leveraging a tool like, you know, Jump or FinMate to take your notes allows you to, you know, be present during the client meetings, be present during those interactions, not be head down taking the notes, freeing up your associate to be doing, you know, more high level things. When you've got tools that are like 90% accurate, that are going to take your notes, they're going to integrate directly with your CRM. They're going to push in the follow-up meeting summary. They're going to put in all of your, you know, follow-up action items, whatever was discussed as a, you know, result of that conversation. And it's going to comprise a follow-up email to the client. Okay. Like, I just think that tool needs to be widely adopted by everyone. I've incorporated it into my own business, and it has saved us so much time in manual documentation. You know, for compliance reasons, we know we need to document all, you know, client interactions and client communication, but just from like a servicing perspective, it just really frees up you and your team's time to be doing the more high level stuff. So if you haven't explored tools like Jump and FinMate, you know, Zox, some of the guys out there, I would highly suggest that you do that. And we'll talk about this in just a second too. Anything that you select needs to play nicest with your hub, your CRM. So choose tools that directly integrate with Redtail. Okay. You know, look into client engagement tools, things like Precise FP. What can, like, as you start to build out your CRM, even once the CRM is humming, you're going to continue to feel friction points. Some of which are like, okay, note taking and documentation, that stinks. You know, rekeying information across our systems, capturing information, filling out, you know, custodial paperwork, that stinks. Leverage tools like Precise FP to make your team's life easier. Use Redtail's native automations. This is one thing that I think is really cool about Redtail. You know, one of the pushback that I received from advisors is like, well, I'm not going to use, you know, workflows. I'm already using tasks, and workflows is just a whole nother thing. So like, the way I nip that in the bud is by leveraging automation that automatically launches workflows. Like, there's no argument if it happens automatically and it's not an additional button to click. So taking a look at the automations that are in Redtail on our website, we have a list of like recommended automations that we suggest everybody take advantage of. Use those. These
are automations.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, like, you know, it's difficult. Like, I'm actually experiencing this right now in my relatively new role, where I can speak to the difficulty of trying to spin up a new tool or a new process at the same time as trying to execute. Like, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. But that's why I love doing webinars like this, because obviously, KU with Simplicity Ops, with Redtail, with our training and support, like, we know it's hard. We want to help you get better at it. We want to be there like your personal trainer at the gym to help build that repetition. So I feel really, really, really passionate about this. You know, you mentioned Precise FP is a really valuable tool. There are other ones out there too. Advisor Websites, which I think is owned by Snappy Kraken now, or FMG. Like, there are marketing sites out there that actually allow you to build on your website a client contact form. You know,
Exactly.
Attach it to a video, attach it to a valuable white paper. Try and give them something that they don't need to use you for, right? And guess what? All the information they put in that form creates a contact in Redtail, gives them a status, gives them a category, lets them know where they came from. Like, there are tools out there that prevent you from those, you know, sitting in front of a bunch of business cards and hammering them in. Like, there are so many tools out there to help reduce the amount of actual typing that you have to do, that I think client engagement wise are incredibly valuable.
And I like what you said about that, but this is we're sharing ideas, but this is unique to every firm. And I want you to be really sensitive to like what continues to feel friction filled. These are some examples from like a client servicing perspective that I really like, because the other one that I had a conversation with a client the other day where we implemented an online scheduling tool. They had previously gone back and forth like, hey, Rick, are you available next Tuesday at noon? Here's the Zoom, like blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We implemented an online scheduling tool, G Reminders for them, built out, you know, meeting links for all the different types of meetings that they have. The nice thing about G Reminders is it directly integrates with Redtail. It creates the new contact or links an existing contact. It directly pushes the appointment onto your calendar. Oh, and it fires off the corresponding meeting workflow, which tells the team how to, you know, prep, day of, and follow up. Like, it doesn't get more streamlined than that. The conversation I had with the client, she's like, oh my gosh, I have like 10 hours a week back in my pocket. And it's cut down on 9 emails on average with clients and back and forth scheduling, sending confirmations, text notifications, reminders day of. Like, you guys should be leveraging these tools, because what would you do with 10 hours a week back in your pocket? I know what I'd be doing. It wouldn't be any of this stuff.
It
right?
isn't.
So
No.
I want to bring awareness to this, but I think the most important thing that we touched on that you said was that tools have to play nice with your CRM. You know, I know there's a lot of other note takers out there. I would use an industry specific note taker because they integrate directly with the CRM.
Without question. Not only do they integrate directly with Redtail, but they go through the same vetting process as any other piece of technology in this industry, which is not the same vetting process OpenAI or, you know, Gemini or any of these. Like, those are all general tools, and they're great. They're great. But they are not like secure, compliant. They're not built with the needs and the rules of this industry in mind. That's a huge part that I always like to reiterate as well.
Absolutely. And piggybacking on the whole like note taker thing, this has become a pain point for our advisors and personally myself in my own business. And so I'm looking for ways to make, you know, creating content and answering questions and serving clients and being, you know, responsive easier. Okay. And so I want to highlight an even more advanced way to leverage AI to create efficiency within your practice. Okay. And so by using a tool like Jump that records your meetings and creates transcripts, you can ask chat or whatever, you know, your bot is to comb through some of your transcripts and come up with like common pain points for clients. You know, what were some common themes we talked about this week? Or like, you know, I've had 4, you know, prospective client calls this week, and we've all talked about some of the same things. Can you help me put together an article or a blog post and allow chat to help put together some ideas to create content, valuable insights that you can share with prospective clients and existing clients? And I'm not talking about like, I mean, we all know what it feels like to receive like a super robotic email.
Sure.
But just like creating the baseline, coming up with some ideas so that you can like build upon that and add your spin and add your touch and add your authentic, you know, voice. But I'm a huge fan of leveraging chat to help come up with content ideas, create cool images. I don't know if anybody follows me on LinkedIn, but we've just created an image of our team, a caricature of our team, and it's adorable and it's perfect. Like it's it's fun to leverage these tools and kind of like work smarter, not harder, honestly.
I mean, it's all about what it is.
Exactly.
It's that phrase, and it's so funny. We at the risk of turning this into like a future proof or something like that, like we are crossing the bridge of AI as it's being built. Like it's wild the times that we live in. But you're absolutely right. AI is one of my favorite collaboration tools to help ideate like themes and emotions that I want to invoke in what I'm writing and what I'm putting together. And it's an amazing first draft tool. Like any type of large language model, any type of like as a first draft tool, it's maybe one of the most powerful things I've ever used. The chat bots, the cleanup, all like there's so much cool stuff out there, but never forget the industry that you're in. Like that's the biggest thing I can give you. Like I did training on AI a year ago, and it's still happening. It is happening as we speak. People using AI to draft up legal briefings, to draft up, important papers, to draft up, legislation, to like everything, right? And that's fine. Like I don't have a problem with that, but you have to check your work. And that's the most important thing.
Agree.
Check your work. There should never be a single thing that you draft with AI that then goes immediately in front of a client. Like that's the rule.
Right.
That's the rule.
Yeah, you know what that feels like to be on the receiving end of that.
I do, and I know. And I could get into human psychology on why that happens, but I won't.
Well, I want to share two other common use cases that we have seen people leverage AI to just create efficiency that I don't feel like a lot of people know about. That's become very helpful for myself and for our clients, and that is building a custom chatbot and leveraging it as like an internal knowledge base. And so what I mean is there's some tools on the market. You can create a custom chat GPT. There's a app called Delphi that I use that I've been able to take all of our meeting transcripts, all of our documentation that we've put together, all of our trainings, all of our best written emails explaining whatever it might be, compile it into this bot, okay, and start to build out its brain, if you will. That now I have an internal knowledge base for all of my, employees, new employees especially, that can be a resource to them to help answer questions and draft responses to frequently asked client questions. And so the reason this is important, when I started this business, it was just me, right? I did everything. So I had all the technical expertise and I was the bottleneck. Well, now I have somebody else on my team who's the technical expert. And I had to rely on her a lot to help me answer some of the technical questions. And so by taking her knowledge and dumping it into this knowledge base, now everybody on my team has access to Catherine's knowledge and wisdom around the clock. So when a client says, hey, can you explain the difference between a tag group and a keyword? Or like, hey, I want this to be a status and this to be a category. What are your thoughts? Like, it's not the red tail explanation. It's not the Google explanation. It's the Catherine explanation. And if any of you know Catherine, she's the best explainer on the whole freaking planet. So like, I want the Catherine explanation. And so what we're helping our clients do is build out their internal knowledge base for processes and procedures and where to find things and how do we communicate whatever complex planning topic to create a consistent communication, style amongst the team. Yeah. Without having to rely on a single person. It removes that bottleneck.
It's incredible. And not only does it remove that bottleneck, but it also allows you to put together a singular source of truth, and to your point, that can follow the cadence of Catherine, or it can follow a joint cadence. Like you can build a singular tool that has the accumulated knowledge and the accumulated tone. I always like to refer to it as vibes. Chief vibes officer at Ascent over here. But like it's what is somebody going to feel when they're reading this or when they're seeing this? By being able to put a distinctly human flavor on what you are using these tools to help save time on is incredibly valuable. I call mine Rick GPT. Like that's like the other thing I do is every time I take a first draft from it and I put it into a doc and I ideate on it and I tweak it and I make it more into me, I always give it back. And I always say, this is the final I'm going with. And it helps it continue to learn as well.
Exactly. And the last piece, and then I'm going to move on from this, but I hope I'm giving people some ideas and things to chew on. There are people in the industry like Ben at BMO that are wizards at using AI in combination with your CRM to run reports, source information, maintain, a clean and organized database by helping, do some of the cleanup, creating even more workflow automation than what, the Redtail native automation is capable of doing. Things like Jump to help source information from the CRM to put together meeting agendas, which in my experience historically has been a royal pain in the side. Just what is everything that's happened since the last time I met with a client? Now the bot can do that. I don't have to go through all the notes and all the activities and all the crap that's in there, right?
Exactly. And there's amazing, like, the thing about AI tools right now is they're super popular with those venture capitalists and those private equity companies. There's a lot of money being put into AI in a lot of places. To your point, we have like our, we're just getting ready. We've only started to expand the scope of AI in our products. But one of the little things that we have is on our Speak text messaging solution. We have an AI tool in there that actually looks at your previous conversations in that text chat. And if you wanted to formulate a message real quick, it will take and contextualize previous things that you talked about, put it into that message so that you don't have to go hunting for it. You don't have to go for that, oh, what did I last talk with them about? It actually pulls it and generates a message, not for you to immediately send, but for you to then put your flavor on it. And I just think that that's, again, it helps cut down on that. Where was this again? Let me go find that information. As a data scrubbing tool, it's awesome.
Smarter, not harder.
Smarter, not harder. But you said like we're talking about, and this was going to be my next question, is there are pitfalls, there are pratfalls, there are mistakes. There are a lot of people who invest money in a tool, and it's like me with a gym membership. Like once I'm paying that monthly fee, I know I'm solving the problem. I must be, because I'm investing money in it, right? Not because I'm actually walking into the gym. A lot of people fall underneath that same, mental block where it's like, cool, we have this tool, we're doing something about it. But there's no strategy in place of what tools to execute on. There's no strategy in place on what our ultimate goal is and what tools we need to be using to reach that goal. And that's where we try to help out, right? So like, what do you see? How do you make sure that we can get all of this together? How do you help teams getting overwhelmed by all of this?
Yeah, well, I mean, I named my business Simplicity for a reason, because simple systems get adoption and simple systems scale. And so, I just find that financial advisors, are kind of bright, shiny object chasers. And then, the Kitsis map might have something to do with it, right? There's just 10,000 million options and you feel like you need one of every category. But like at the end of the day, it's easy to get distracted by these tools. But more isn't always better. Does it solve a real problem? Does it integrate with the technology that you're already using? Can we realistically implement it and maintain it? If no, then no, And
right.
The key to successful implementation of any technology is mutual adoption. So you need to invest in training. You need to document how to use the tools and where it fits into your processes. And you need to reinforce and hold people accountable for following protocol and actually using the tools. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money.
There was a question that popped up that I wanted to ask you, which is like getting cooperation from staff, whether it be at the top of the chain of command or whether it be in the middle or at the bottom. Like, what are some good strategies to actually building that? I always like to say like physical violence is the answer. Just hit them on the knuckles with a ruler to get. But maybe that's not copacetic for everybody. What suggestions do you have in helping build buy-in?
Well, you need to take into consideration the person that you're speaking with, and you need to tailor the communication to directly benefit that person. Like you might understand the value, but you need to communicate the value in a way that directly benefits the person you're speaking with. And sometimes it's different depending on who you speak with. I find that people care about two things. and I'm being funny, but I think you guys will follow me. Time and money. Is it going to save them time? Is it going to save or make them more money? Depending on who you talk to, it's pretty clear what they value, and maybe it's all of it. But you need to explain how it's going to save them more time and how it's going to make or save them more money. And once people can see that and how it directly benefits them and how it's going to allow them to be doing what is the highest and best use of their time or what they enjoy doing more, people have no problem adopting these systems. And you've got to keep it simple. And that's the last bullet here, KISS. Keep it simple, silly. Like it needs to, for all the things that I just explained, it needs to simplify your tech stack. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to be easy to teach. It needs to be easy to maintain. And you need to think long term. Is this a tool that's going to make sense as we grow, as we scale? And once those things are considered, I find that people don't usually have much of an argument at that point. People generally buy in and are excited to do things better. And most people just want to serve more people and help more people. And all of these tools that I've explained today is going to free up your time and elevate the client service experience, which is going to do all of those things.
I love it. I just keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And so I guess, to kind of start to tie all this together, you guys, what needs to happen next to make all of this come to life is, one, you need to optimize your CRM. You really need to use 100% of that tool. So many advisors that I talk to are like, oh, I use 10, 20, 50% of my CRM. Use 100% of the CRM, contacts, tasks, your sales pipeline, your calendar, build out a proactive customer service experience, figure out what you want this to feel like from a client's perspective, and use Redtail as the vehicle for making that happen. And once you've identified, what is this going to look like? What is this going to feel like? What are the services that we provide? Document your processes. Start with, the things that happen most frequently. Hopefully you guys are using activities in Redtail. Go in and see, what are people working on? What can we standardize with an activity template, with a workflow? What goes into each step in the process? Who on my team is doing this stuff? Have very clear role delineation so everybody knows, what are they doing and how to operate. And then, like I said earlier, once you start to build out these processes, you're going to continue to feel friction around things like scheduling, around things like note-taking and documentation. That's when you start to integrate technology. This is the framework. This is step 1, 2, 3. If you think about this like building a house, you cannot throw the roof and the frame on a faulty structure, on a faulty foundation. It collapses. Yeah. We need to start with the foundation first and build up to integrating the technology. That's the bright, shiny object thing that we run up against, like, oh, well, why don't workflows work? And why doesn't my note taker work? And it's like, well, because your CRM is a freaking disaster. We got to start there. And once we get all of this, built out, the last step is somebody needs to own these systems and audit it, regularly to maintain the integrity of your technology. Things break, things get disconnected. And when that happens, especially if it happens and nobody catches it, it creates massive mistrust in the systems. And that's what we need to keep ahead of.
I agree 100%. So, all right, you got all these resources here. What should they hit up? And remember, we mentioned this earlier. You can download this right now. You can get all of this information. You can get all of these resources to help you start on this just from this presentation. So take advantage of it. But what is your move? Like, somebody says, all right, it's time to clean up our act. I've seen the light. What's the one thing that they should start on?
I did them in order here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to use a style guide to create a contact hierarchy for how contacts are organized in Redtail. None of the rest of this is effective if the data in Redtail is disorganized. So take our style guide, adapt it for the way you guys communicate about the various contacts in your database, and start cleaning up and organizing the contents of Redtail. Then implement a task management system. Use my activity priority legend here to standardize the way we communicate over Redtail. I want every client service request to live in Redtail. I want every operational task to live in Redtail. I want all communication around everything that you're doing for these clients to live in Redtail. And this activity priority legend is a fantastic way to cut down on back and forth email communication by setting a priority and setting the importance to indicate when this activity needs to be done. So I'm not having to say, hey, Rick, talk to the client today. I need this money out by Friday. We're going to use a numerical value to indicate the priority and importance. Then you need to work on your service model and figure out who you serve, the services you provide, which is going to indicate what your workflows, what other technologies you need to make all that happen at scale. And I've included some workflow whiteboarding templates that everybody can download. I suggest you document your processes on something as simple as a Word document before you take it to Redtail, because no knock on Redtail, moving things around and manipulating things in the system is more difficult than getting kind of like the rough draft and the brain dump done on a workflow whiteboarding template first. I've included these 3 templates because each one of them can be cloned and I included these because these are the baseline. Each one of these templates can be cloned and adapted for every process to run your entire business. You can iterate on all of them. So in an effort to not reinvent the wheel and work smarter and not harder like we're talking about, take these templates, use the beneficiary one for anything that has to do with paperwork, and retitle it and update the language to make it reflective of whatever type of paperwork you are doing. And then take that to Redtail and build out those workflows in your system. And I'll give you a sneak peek. We have included all of these workflows as part of the Redtail workflow library that you guys can apply to your business. But I will tell you this, templates are not the answer. You actually have to put some love into those templates and make them reflective of your uniqueness. People buy these bright, shiny tools. People buy these workflows and they're like, oh, this is going to solve all my problem. But it's like, it's not a get rich quick solution. You actually have to put a little bit of elbow grease into them. You need to make them reflective of your uniqueness. They need to be reflective of your custodial requirements. They need to feel and sound like you to be effective. So keep that in mind as you start to build out these systems and processes. But here I've given you kind of the baseline to at least give you a jump start. And then again, if you go to our website, I think I included that on here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I will say really briefly about that. If you are in Redtail and you go to Manager Account and Workflow Templates, that is where you can access right now, as of the recording of this webinar on June 10th, you can access, I think, like 20 or 30 different Redtail built workflow templates from scratch. Wow. All right. That's one thing that you can do right now. We're working with Kate and you'll see, we'll announce it. We'll put some stuff out there as well, but we are working with Kate on getting some of her workflows into that same area so that you can take advantage of those as well. So keep a lookout. They're not in there yet. As of June 10th, they're not in there yet. But they are definitely, coming. And I'm really, really excited about it. If anybody is looking for resources really quickly, you should be able to not only scan the QR code, not only join the community there, shoot a question over to info@SimplicityOps if you didn't get any of the resources today. If you're curious about that, I'm sure Kate would love emails as follow-ups for this webinar. But on our webinar platform here, you should be able to move around and reduce and close out various, what's the word I'm looking for? Sections, for lack of a better word. And that is where you can find the slides. That is where you can find all of this information. Kate, we only got a couple minutes left, but we had some really good questions. And one in particular is one that kind of drives me insane too. And it's about, I tend to focus on client experience, but most advisors on their team, they focus on sales and they see sales, AKA new clients, as the only way to grow. They come from the camp of sales through service, cease resistance. Like, what wording can you shed light on that might be able to help break that mentality? I have my stance on it, but I'm curious on yours.
So that is one line of new revenue But I think you would be very surprised to know that if you do what we just talked about here and you have 10 hours of space to pour into your top clients, how quickly you will learn that there are assets that are still on the table that you can earn if you pour more deeply into those relationships. And you've already earned their trust rather than going out and prospecting and trying to earn, someone's trust, that a cold relationship. You really need to nurture those warm and hot relationships, because you've already earned their trust, and that the point is to deepen those, especially with especially with the wealth transfer that is happening as we speak. Deepening
Right.
those top relationships and really nurturing the next generation, that's where business is going to grow.
I have always been curious because it's a pretty well-known stat that retention is like, what, 5 to 7? I'm making up a stat. 86% of statistics you hear are made up on the spot. But like, there is a pretty well-known fact that retention is infinitely less expensive than prospecting. And I've always been so curious as to what seems to be a direct, like, strategic shift away from that fact, when in reality, like, the kids, the next generation, that's your prospecting pipeline, that's your retention pipeline. You should be holding more events that speak to them, that help them understand the economy better, help them understand what's going on better. Throw an ice cream social for the family. Do things that bring the family together, because then your retention becomes more, pertinent. It becomes more valuable, in my opinion. I've constantly been blown away by that, because that question isn't the only one. A lot of people, they want prospecting. We want to bring on new clients. We want to bring on high net worth clients, and all of that is fine. But I am just always so surprised at what I sometimes perceive to be the lack of attentiveness to kids, beneficiaries in a particular relationship.
No, I totally agree. And I see a couple of these other questions coming in, Rick, and I think we just need to reiterate that everybody's going to have a copy of this presentation. I'm going to send a follow-up email some point this week with all of the resources that we talked about, the links that we talked about, the technologies that we talked about, so people can download and take that information and apply it to their business. I see a lot of questions about which piece of technology do I like over the other one. I'm kind of tech agnostic. It depends on your business.
Sure.
You need to do the pros and cons list and figure out which one's going to solve the problem. I can't tell you. I mean, Jump is a great tool, but like, if it's not approved by your broker dealer, don't take my advice.
Exactly. That's the other thing is like, we're offering suggestions, but there is an organizational structure in this industry, whether it be FINRA and SEC, whether it be your broker dealer, OSJ, RIA, whatever. Double check. If you're curious about adding new tools to your toolbox, always double check with your broker dealer on what's approved, what pricing is available, things like that. That's a really, really good point, Kate. I think that's a time. I know we started a little bit later, but if you have any outstanding questions, I will make sure Kate gets to them. You will be getting a follow-up email to this webinar. So, Kate, any final words? I was going to ask you, like, what's harder? Is it mapping out processes, or is it dealing with a house full of pets and kids? Like, what one requires more patience? Where do you get a little bit of your life out of?
I'm like a processes data geek. So like, I could do that all day. Raising 2 small children. I've got like 17 chickens and a couple of cats. That to me is a lot more challenging. If I had a workflow for managing and parenting a 4-year-old, shoot, it might be a different.
Oh my gosh. That's your get rich quick scheme right there. It's just, here's your 4-year-old workflow.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Kate, for your time today. It's always a joy talking with you. I hope everybody out here pulled at least one strategy away from what we're talking about today, at least one thing that maybe you can go back on and start taking some notes on, start having some brain, a little brain storming session with yourself.
Absolutely. If nothing else, I hope we gave you some food for thought,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Kate, again, I will say thank you to everyone else who stuck around with us this whole time. I will say thank you. Don't forget, if you want to rewatch this webinar, you can do so on demand at any time. Just reuse the link you already have. But, Kate, thank you again. Have a great rest of your week. Everybody else, thank you again. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time.
You got it. Thanks, Rick. I'll see you later.
See you later. And we're done. Rock and roll.